Group, thank you very much for being here today. I know everything is about a tweet or TikTok, but I wanted to do a little substance with you today so we can have a conversation about it. I've been spending a lot of time on the campaign trail, as I hope you know, and New Yorkers are talking about the issues they face, the problems they face, and it's all very true. They're right to be anxious, they're right to be frustrated, but at the same time, there is nothing here that we cannot handle, right? New York is all about resilience. New York is all about facing challenges and learning from the challenges. New York has been incredible in its way to deal with challenges and overcome and actually get stronger and better from what we've gone through, right? Even recently, 9/11, horrific, but you learn, you generate additional security measures. Hurricane Sandy, horrific, but you deal with climate change, extreme weather, etc. COVID, the same thing. So that's where we are again. It's time to build a new New York City based on what we're dealing with and what we've learned. The key to making progress is government, and it's a government that actually works. The current government in New York City has failed in many ways. At the same time, the answer is not now slick slogans, phony promises, and inexperienced leadership. You need smart ideas, and you need smart ideas with the ability to actually implement them, right? It's about competent management to fix our problems. That's when the city works best, when you have a competent manager. Now, we're going to put forth a full agenda in this campaign on those issues. We're going to talk about building a new safety system, building a new affordable New York, building community, building the economy of tomorrow, today, and building a new subway system. Literally about talking about building a new New York. And if we do that, I believe the city has great potential to excel in a way it has not excelled before. These are all manageable issues. I think we can deal with them, and I think the future of the city can be brighter than ever before. I'm going to be going through each one of those agenda items in detail, because you can't do everything in a tweet, believe it or not. You can't do everything on a 2-minute TikTok. So I'll be going through each one in detail. Today I want to talk about public safety and policing. Who said public safety is a basic civil right of all of our people? Nobody. David Dinkins. Who said?
Were we supposed to yell out? I didn't know, I'm sorry.
Did you know David Dinkins?
No, I didn't know we were supposed to yell out.
All right. Understand our police officers put their lives on the line for us every single day. They've got a tough job to do, maintaining public safety and hold accountable those who break the law. Who said that? Nobody?
Bill de Blasio.
Bill de Blasio did not say that. That was a really bad
I'm trying to
Just a
Google.
guess. Somebody's
Barack Obama.
Okay.
Public safety is the foundation of New York City. And it's time to turn the page on the current philosophy on public safety, because it did not work. We have gone through years of a philosophy that was anti-police, anti-public safety. This was dominated by the socialists in the city council and the city controller, but the dominant political philosophy, when you think about it, in New York City was anti-police, anti-public safety. Cops are racists, deconstruct jails, defund the public, defund the police, dismantle the police. Police are a threat to public safety. Mr. Mamdani said All this misery, all for money. In the last budget, city council tried to make the NYPD reduce its overtime budget by half. They refused. There is no negotiating with an institution this wicked and corrupt. Police department, wicked and corrupt. Defund it, dismantle it. End the cycle of violence, because the police are part of the cycle of violence. We don't need an investigation to know the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. Tweet where I say, when people say defund the police, they mean fundamental reform. He says, no, we mean defund the police, right? Defund the police is very clear. 3 words, defund the police. Stop funding police. We'll have to wait to see if our lead holds, but to be leading in the midst of a global pandemic, together we can tax the rich, heal the sick, house the poor, defund the police, and build a socialist New York. And that's what this is about, building a socialist New York. I don't think the Assemblyman understands public safety at all. He's against having police respond to domestic violence calls. 60 to 70% of domestic violence calls involve physical violence or threats of physical violence. Against having police respond to hate crimes. Many hate crimes have violence involved. Recently, we've seen a rash of anti-Semitic activity. Against having the police do traffic stops. 40% of the illegal guns that we find coming into the city come from traffic stops. And he's against adding more police. And I don't think he understands the lack of morale that the police department feel from his offensive statements. And the problem of attrition of people from the New York City Police Department. And this was not just rhetoric that circulated for years. They then acted on it. They cut $1 billion from the police department, and they passed other anti-police measures. And the results have been devastating. You have a demoralized police force. You have a deteriorated relationship between the police and the community. You have turmoil at one police plaza. And crime is up. Crime is up. You can't be selective about picking certain facts on crime. Yes, some categories of crime are down, but overall, crime is up, right? And that's what New Yorkers feel. They feel that crime is up. You know why they feel that way? Because crime is up. That's why they feel that way. Why did that happen? We need more cops. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who I think is doing a very good job, by the way. Total number of uniformed officers. Year 2000, we had 40,000. Today, 34,000. The applications for NYPD. 2017, you had 18,000 applicants. Today, you have 8,000 applicants. Look at the starting salary to be an NYPD officer. Say you're willing to deal with all this rhetoric and all this turmoil in the city. Okay, how much do I get paid? $60,000 New York City, compared to other cities where I would argue the job is not as taxing. So it's time for a new policy. First, we have to hire more police. Quote for 5,000 more police would bring the force to about 40,000, depending on what the rate of attrition is. To hire more police, you're going to have to increase salaries. And you can do that by providing recruitment and retention bonuses. I would propose $15,000 bonus paid in 2 tranches, $5,000 on graduation from the academy, $10,000 after 12 months. But in that first year, the salary would go up $15,000. Then have a retention stipend 4 years, 2 to 5, 6 to 9, and then a bonus for police officers who stay after 10 years. As an added incentive, add educational benefits, a CUNY SUNY scholarship, as a benefit for people to get them to recruit. In the meantime, as you're trying to work out this recruitment issue, consider bringing back police officers who recently retired and paying them a salary while they collect their pension, which would be attractive for the police officer and would also get you through this window of time when you're trying to raise the recruitment numbers. Strengthen the key emergency response team. The SRG team, Strategic Response Group, is the group that responded to the shooting on Park Avenue. They are a key response group. The Assemblyman says they should be disbanded. I think they should be increased. They are key to counterterrorism, key to mass protests, and it's only going to get worse, not better. I think it would be a tremendous mistake to disband them. I also think we can do a better job coordinating with other security entities. You'll see now even more private security being hired by these buildings after what happened on Park Avenue. And getting the private security more coordinated, more trained, more communication with the NYPD, I think is very important. And expand the special crisis unit to handle the homeless and be more aggressive in having the quote-unquote dangerous mentally ill. The law is very clear. The law has been very clear. If a homeless person is mentally ill and a danger to themselves or others, then you should help them, and you don't help them by leaving them on the street or on the train. Enforce the law. Enforce the law. That was done for many years. And it was to everyone's benefit, the benefit of the homeless person and the benefit of the public. And seventh, lastly, and probably most importantly, you have to change the relationship with the community. You have to reimagine the relationship between the police and the community. And you want to empower the local community. And I would suggest literally sitting down precinct by precinct, where you meet with the community leaders, the local leadership of the police in that precinct, and talk about what that community wants from the police partnership. And it's going to be different in different precincts across the city. You'll get one conversation in Bayside, Queens, you'll have another in East New York. But literally, it starts at the table. Sit down at the table and have the conversation. What are your grievances? What are we doing that's right? What are we doing that's wrong? How do we actually change and have a police strategy that works for you in this community? I think the mayor should attend that first meeting precinct by precinct. And what you're trying to do here is change the culture on two levels. Change the culture vis-a-vis the community and go from an adversarial relationship to a cooperative relationship, go from the community being separate from the police department, the police precinct, to a mutuality in the relationship, change from suspicion to trust, and change the culture with the NYPD where you don't have a reluctance to join, but you're excited to join. You're joining the NYPD. It is the finest police force in the United States of America. Be proud. You're lucky if you can get recruited. And that's the way it was, and that's the way it should be. Questions, comments?
Oh, hi, Governor, former Governor, sorry. I wanted to ask you, well, two things. What you propose, it sounds a lot like what former Mayor Bill de Blasio did with neighborhood policing, and a lot of it does seem to exist, precinct community council meetings, and you said Bayside, so the 111 will have a precinct. So that's one note. My first question is, a few weeks ago, former interim police commissioner Tom Donlin sued the police department, sued the city, claiming that under this mayor, there was widespread corruption in the police department. Some top chiefs a few weeks previous did the same thing in suing. So do you think that the public has at least some reason for having questions and concerns about the police department? Maybe not rank and file police officers, but what they may see as corruption. And there's been, to get into the number of lawsuits that have been settled due to brutality at protests. There is a reason why some people, whether it's Assemblymember Mamdani and supporters or just regular New Yorkers, have a reticence to fully, or have a reason to be critical of the police department.
Yeah. One of the things I learned in life is, if a person or a collective has a feeling, by definition they are right. This is how they feel. Well, you're wrong to feel that way. No, don't tell me I'm wrong to feel that way. This is the way I feel. And if this is the way I feel, it's a legitimate issue. And yes, they feel distrustful. And you're also right, I think it's on many levels. There's been a scandal at one police plaza. Police commissioners come and go. Scandals with police commissioners. So it's at the highest level of the police department. So yes, they feel distrustful. And that trickles all the way down. And then there are incidents where you have a police officer who was overly aggressive in handling a demonstrator. And I saw it on TV. So yes, if I understand the feeling is real because if you have it, by definition it is real. And I understand where it's coming from. And that's why my point is, you have to not only renew, but double down on that conversation with the community, and it's going to have to be on a local level, because you're not going to do this top down. This has got to be bottom up, where you sit down with the mayor at the table, with that local community, precinct by precinct, about 77 precincts, so you have 77 meetings, and you say, let's talk, let's talk. Let me understand how you feel, and I'm sure they're gonna bring up these issues about the police department, et cetera, and hopefully aggressive policing, et cetera. Fine. Have that conversation, get past the negativity, and how do we now move forward? Because it does not work for anyone if the police and the community are adversarial. It's a non-starter. By the way, not just in New York City. I've seen this all across the country. I used to go through it with housing police and public housing authorities. If there's not a sense of mutuality between the police and the community, it just does not work. And I understand why there's concerns and cynicism, skepticism, but I also understand we have to get past it. By the way, it's one of the reasons people don't want to take the job, right? I don't want to take the job. I don't want to become an NYPD officer, put myself in danger. The politicians don't support me, and the local community doesn't like me. Why would I take that job?
Any response to how similar this is to Bill de Blasio's neighborhood policing initiative?
I don't see it as similar to Mayor de Blasio's. There's been, every police commissioner has talked about local engagement. I just think it's more important than ever before, because we are at a point today where you have more hostility and estrangement than we have in the past. And I think your point about when police plaza issues, police commissioners suing the mayor, this turnover of police commissioners, I think it adds to the sense of the lack of trust.
Governor?
Sorry, who did you call it? Me? Oh, thank you. With the SRG, Mr. Cuomo, you mentioned you wanted to add officers to it. Do you envision the SRG staying with the same purpose? There's been a lot of controversy about SRG's involvement in protest response, for instance. Do you think it's appropriate to continue having SRG do that, or do you want to reform the purpose?
Look, I think, no, I would keep the SRG responding to mass protests. You had one just yesterday, right? You have very heated dialogues that are going on right now. And I understand that. And everyone has a right, First Amendment right to protest. Yeah, and we encourage that. But you have seen a lot of destruction during these protests. They're very large. You don't have a right to destroy public property or private property. You don't have a right to harass another individual. So this is a delicate balance. And I think you're going to see more, not less. Hopefully the world finds peace sooner than we expect. But dealing with these demonstrations, protecting the rights of the demonstrators, and enforcing the law is a delicate balance. And having a group that is trained in that, I think, is very important.
And I guess that's where I'm wondering if you want to see any reforms taken. Groups like the New York Civil Liberties Union have said that the SRG is violating protesters' First Amendment rights at these mass demonstrations by pursuing too aggressive tactics.
Yeah, look, because we've gone through this, there's no new here, right? Post George Floyd, with this whole discussion of overly aggressive police, abusive police violating the law and killing, right? We had at that time the Attorney General review and did a report. And we were more aggressive in decertifying police. You can be decertified as a police officer, which by the state, when you're decertified, you're not only fired from that department, you can't be a police officer anywhere in the state. So yes, if we know the line, and we know when someone steps over the line, there are discipline actions, including dismissal, sanctions, etc. So you have to strictly enforce the line.
When I started, Mr. Governor, it's already exact 3 months from today, the election day will take place. And there is a lot of undecided people, they don't know who to choose. But right now, the Latino community, especially the elder community, are waiting to hear something that they're gonna think they're gonna vote for the right person. What would you tell those undecided people?
I would say they're right to say, let's find out some facts. Let's find out what each candidate is actually going to do. And what they're going to do for me. And if the idea makes any sense, and if the idea makes sense that they have the ability to actually do it, is it possible? And can this candidate actually do what he says he is going to do? And is it going to affect my life, right? This all comes down, it's very simple at the end of the day. You're talking about managing a city. You're talking about public safety, affordable housing, subway systems. These are operational questions. Who has ideas to reform the city and the operations and the systems in a way that's going to help me? And don't just give me promises and slogans. Explain to me what you would specifically do, and then explain why I should believe you can do it, right? There's a big gap there. I have a great idea. Is it really a great idea? Let's figure out if it's really a great idea. Let's have that conversation. Second step, I can do it. Oh, really? How are you going to do it? How are you going to pay for it? And what are you going to say when you get to Albany? And what are you going to say when you get to the Congress? And what do you say when you get sued? And what do you say when you get to the city council? Can you hire a staff that can do it? And have you ever done anything like this before in your life? Or is this all fantastical? So, yes, listen to the campaigns, listen to the facts, have the dialogue, then decide. 3 months.
Thanks, Rich. Hi, Governor. How are you?
How are you, Melissa?
I'm well, thank you. Can you tell us how much will your plan to give bonuses and raises to police officers cost, and how will you pay for it? And also, would any other uniformed workers in your administration be subject to raises, like correction officers or other people who do dangerous work? And then, if I can just sneak one more in there, how would you prevent officers from potentially retiring in order to come back and then like double dip, quote unquote? Sorry, it's a lot.
No.
How much
I
will it
just have to
cost?
make notes.
How will you pay for it?
I don't want to leave anything down.
Would anybody else get raises?
It's about $250 million. I think you will find within the $115 billion budget a lot of funds that can be better spent. You know, I come with a different perspective. I took over the state government. We had the largest deficit in the history of the state of New York. Something like $10 billion. And we had to go through that budget, line by line by line. How do you do things better? How do you do things more efficiently? What they normally do in a budget process is they just add on top, right? It's like painting a room and you just put another coat of paint on top of the old coat of paint. After a while, you have 10 coats of paint and it doesn't look right. To do it correctly, you can't assume that every dollar you have been spending is a dollar that you must spend next year, right? So the budget process is not just what can we add, how do we do it better?
Looking at the city
250
budget,
million.
sorry, Governor, looking at the budget from where you are now, is there any area that you feel could, produce savings?
Melissa, I
easily?
don't think there's an area that you couldn't find savings. I mean, look at the Department of Education and their consulting contracts. Just explain to me how you get that number of consultants, that number of contracts, and have the conversation and let them justify every contract. And by the way, what you often find is nobody tries to justify it. They all say the same thing. Well, that's there because it's always been there. That's the answer. And I, did 11 budgets on time, bigger budgets, wrote in the commissioners, what's this? I don't know, it's always been there. I'm talking about just police officers. On your hypothesis, why wouldn't a police officer retire and get rehired? They could only retire if they were eligible for the pension, right? So they would have had to do their 20, be eligible for the pension, and then they could retire and come back and get rehired for a short period of time. But if they retired, they would have gotten their pension and they would have worked somewhere else, right? We would actually want them to come back and work in the police force.
Henry.
Hi, Governor. How you doing, sir?
How are you, sir?
One on affordability and one on policing. On affordability, and I know you're not going into that portion of your vision today in detail. Mr. Mamdani was with Senator Warren today talking about universal child care. I'm wondering what, if any, concrete steps you take, if elected, to move the city toward universal child care. And on policing, Mr. Mamdani makes the case he could eliminate overtime and not hire more police officers by, in effect, having civilians do much of the mental health work, homeless services work, and that many officers don't in fact want the overtime. They want the quality of life as opposed to working 60, 70 hours a week. What is your response to his position on policing along those lines?
Yes, they want the quality of life because you have police officers working 2 shifts, 3 shifts, working overtime, and you're burning them out. Hire more police officers. That's the answer to that. So you don't get burned out. And by the way, I don't want you burned out. Because when you get burned out, that's when you make a mistake. When you get burned out, that's when you overreact in a demonstration situation. So hire more police officers. Well, we'll have civilians do police work. No, police should do police work. We'll send civilians to a domestic violence situation. Domestic violence situation is not always let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk things through, right? 60 to 70% involves violence or threats of violence. These can be dangerous situations. No, I don't think it's appropriate to send a civilian into that situation. Social worker with a homeless person. If a person is homeless and dangerously mentally ill, which means they can be a danger to themselves or others, that means they can be a danger to you. There have been many times in my own experience where I walked up to a homeless person in a subway, in subway tunnels. I did this throughout the country, and the person looks like they're in need of help, and the person can get violent because they're mentally ill. So, well, just send a social worker. No, I think you can send a social worker. I think you also need a police officer if that situation turns violent. So I understand he does not like the police, because he has said numerous times, I don't like the police. Well, why do you say that? Because he said they're racist. When you say somebody's racist, that means you don't like them. I hope. He has said they're wicked. He has said they're corrupt. He said they're a threat to public safety. I get it. I disagree with him vehemently on all of the above. And I don't believe that New Yorkers want to sacrifice their public safety for some ideological socialist point of view, right? In the Democratic Socialist Charter, it says defund the police. It's in their charter. His tweet in response to my trying to say this is a more general philosophical point of view, he said, no, it's not. It's defund the police. So yes, he wants to defund the police. I think they play a vital role in society, and I think they're a benchmark of New York City's well-being, because affordability, economic development, yes, but it all starts with safety.
And any concrete steps you would take toward universal child care if elected?
Well, let's back to reality. The state started universal pre-K, right? I know you guys were in the city. I was in Albany. Everything comes from New York City because we are the center of the universe. I know. The state started pre-K, right? And then the city, Mayor de Blasio, said he wanted to bring pre-K to New York City. But the state had already started it. The more we can make it affordable, the better. And you're right, I'm going to be rolling on an affordability agenda that speaks to just that. That was a shot at you, Marcia, that the city thinks is the center of the universe.
Well, now I gotta pick Marcia.
I'm wondering, you say you have a $250 million plan to beef up the cops. Does that include the pay raise? And the reason I want to talk to you about the pay raise, you say the police starting salary in New York City is $60,000, and you point out that in LA they get $94,000. The truth of the matter is that they get almost that if they went to Suffolk County, Nassau County, Westchester County, or the MTA police. So what, in your mind, is the right salary, starting salary for a New York City police officer, and is that included in your $250 million plan? And then I have a second question.
Well, basically what we're saying here is it would be 60 plus 15, right? Because you would
So it'd be
get
75,000.
Yes.
So the stipend, what you're saying is that the stipend, if they get the 5,000 and the 10,000,
So at the end of
will
the
stay
first-
in their base pay.
Yes, first year, at the end of the first year, you're at 75, which makes you more than competitive with surrounding jurisdictions.
Okay, so my
You
second
could go to
question.
LA for 94,000, but then you have to go to LA.
So my second question is this. At his press conference today, Mr. Mamdani and Senator Warren slammed you for being a person who wants to contribute, contributors, wants people who are billionaires to contribute to help defeat him. And that you're more concerned with billionaires and dealing with billionaires than actual people. And I wonder if you would like to respond to those charges.
I don't even know what that means. Let's, back to political rhetoric. I don't know what that means. I've represented the people of this state. I've fought more for the working families of this state and accomplished more for the working families of this state than either of them, frankly. Highest minimum wage in the United States of America, we did that. Free college tuition with the Excelsior Scholarship, we did that. Protecting labor rights, we did that. Union rights, we did that. So, raising taxes on the millionaires, I did that. Lowering taxes on the middle class, I did that. Most progressive tax code in the United States of America, I did that. What did they actually do? Progressive is not a theoretical concept. It's a person who makes progress. And what progress did they make? Well, I proposed. Yeah, that's nice. I did a press release. I gave a speech. That's nice. What did you actually affect? I sort of had a debate with my father one time. He always said, I'm a pragmatic progressive. And I used to say, you don't need that word pragmatic, because it's inherent in the word progressive. And it's confusing when you say pragmatic progressive. People don't know what you're saying. He said, no, you need pragmatic, otherwise people think progressive is just abstract and theoretical. He said, it's not. Look at the word progressive, you had to make progress. He said, I know, but that's not the way they think of it. They think it's just a rhetorical position. So he was a pragmatic progressive, which is a progressive with functionality, who makes progress, who had a function. I'm a pragmatic progressive. I don't just talk about it, I do it.
See, I think that the point that they were trying to make in attacking you was to say that basically you want to raise money from people who are rich to go after a man, Mr. Mamdani, who only wants to make things more affordable for people. And that was their attack on you. And I wondered if
I want to make things more affordable.
All right, last one, Gloria?
So, Lamar, how are you?
How are you?
Good. You were talking about Mr. Mamdani's previous comments, and I want to bring up some of your previous comments as well. I believe it was 2020 that you called defund the police a legitimate school of thought. And it was also then, when you were governor, that you signed significant criminal justice reform, including an executive order which required police departments across the state to make significant reforms in order to get their state funding. So I guess I want to know how you square those two positions now. And if you believe there is anything the NYPD has to reform, if there's anything that this police department should be thinking of changing.
Yes, let me just pull up, because I think your quote, what you're speaking about is in one of the slides. What I said was defund the police is not literal. It's the second one on the bottom. When people are saying defund the police, they are saying they want to see real fundamental change. He says the state is passing an important pledge of reforms, and local mayors, police departments must also hear the people and make changes. Okay? So I didn't say defund the police, literally. The assemblyman came back and said, no, we want to defund the police, saying he meant it literally. He wants to literally defund the police, which would abolish the police department, if that's literally what you meant. I was saying, when they say defund the police, they're saying we're unhappy post-George Floyd, we need police reform. But I think this is all the difference in the world, by the way. Because his point, doubling down on, no, we want to defund the police means abolish the police. And that should concern all New Yorkers. I do believe after George Floyd, it was a moment in time where you said, you know what, we better look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And it's a moment for reform, and we did reform the police department. I give the Attorney General additional powers. I passed a piece of law that said all local mayors jurisdictions should work with their police department to find reforms. We worked with DCJS, we did additional reforms. So yes, reforms, yes. Reform is a constant process. Every day you should be reformed. Every day you should be learning from yesterday. And what can I do better? And I'm sure today they're having meetings saying, let's watch the videotape of the Grand Central Terminal and how that was handled. And let's learn from that. That's reforming. So yes, you're reforming every day and you're changing every day with the circumstances. And you're adjusting to the circumstances. So that is an ongoing process as far as I'm concerned. And I believe in that. And that's what I'm saying here. Abolish the police is a radical, bizarre, rhetorical statement that if you mean it literally, as you suggest, you're dangerous. If you're saying abolish the police department, you're dangerous. If you don't mean what you're saying, well, then you're incredible. We get everybody?
But Governor, you did actually threaten to pull the funding from local police departments if they didn't work with our local governments. You did say that if they didn't do that, you would pull funding away from them. Do you regret doing that at all?
No.
You also signed to repeal 50A. You speak about the culture. That is one of the things that police unions speak about, is that 50A, because it posts any time there's any sort of allegation against police officers.
Yeah. No, we didn't defund any police department. I said, as a condition of receiving funding, I want the police in that community to engage with that community and come up with a plan that the community accepts. Basically, the law said, sit down, what I said to Katie, sit down, have a conversation with the police. George Floyd just happened. Meet with the local community, have a conversation, how you want to reform the police department, if at all. It's up to you, but have the conversation. That's a condition of funding. They all did it, they all got funded. 50A was a reform that said there's going to be more disclosure about a police officer's record and complaints against the police officer. And yes, the police said, I don't want people knowing complaints against me. The public said, we have a right to know how many complaints you had against you. And that was the debate on 50A. And we erred on the side of disclosure and transparency.
Have you spoken to law enforcement, PBAs about this initiative that you're proposing here, since many of them are supporting Mayor Eric Adams in the general election?
I've discussed this with police all over the state, including New York City, for many years, these issues.
Governor,
And
two
they've
quick
complained
questions.
about the starting salaries for many years.
Governor, two quick questions. One, I want to follow up on something Melissa asked. When you say $250 million for your plan, do you anticipate this triggering any other increases in uniform or otherwise pay, since the city typically negotiates in a pattern for, once one union gets something, basically everyone else gets the same framework? And then I wanted to ask you a political question. Right now, there's a debate about redistricting, and the governor is pursuing potentially a constitutional amendment that would allow New York State to redistrict, in between when it normally does. I think you helped pen the original amendment that required this process to amend the Constitution. Do you agree with the governor? What's your take on what's going on in Texas?
First question first. The starting salaries, you already have a variety of starting salaries in city positions. So I understand the effect on quote-unquote pattern bargaining, but really negotiating each contract individually and everything like that. We passed, and I promoted, a constitutional amendment to the redistricting law. It was championed by Ed Koch, God bless his soul, and a bunch of independent citizens, good government groups that said we should have an independent redistricting commission, that we should stop using redistricting as a political football, and we should have an independent redistricting commission. And then Ed Koch went and organized a whole lobbying effort and had all the candidates who were running for office that year sign a pledge that they would pass the independent redistricting law, which would put it on the ballot for the people to vote. And he got everyone to sign the pledge. I think I signed the pledge. I don't know if I was running that year. But he was highly successful in organizing support. I supported it. We passed it. We put it on the ballot. The people vote for it. It is now in the Constitution. That you have an independent redistricting commission, theory being you're taking politics out of it. It's not going to be about gerrymandering. It's going to be on merits. And it's every census. Now Texas makes this apparently grossly political move. Do other states have to respond in kind? To do that in New York, you would have to repeal that constitutional amendment. And to do that, you'd have to pass a law, put it on the ballot, and get it passed.
Do you think that New York should, or do you think it's better to have that integrity that all these groups had supported at the outset, but now you see other states are taking this more political tack? Does New York need to be on equal footing with them now?
Well, I think we have to let it play out a little bit. I think what Texas is doing is grossly political and just gross gerrymandering. And one of the reasons why the public turns out off on government. It could also have a dramatic effect if it goes beyond Texas. But to pass it, to do it here, you would need a couple of years. So I don't know that the time frame would even make it relevant.
It would be for like a future. It wouldn't be for this round of the midterms. It would be.
Yeah, and I think they're really talking about the midterms, and this is a function of the Donald Trump presidency. So my guess is by the time you could actually do it, it would be irrelevant.
Governor, just one question. Andy McDonough from City and State Magazine. You've brought up, the Assembly member's tweets about defund in the past, his past statements about defund. He said on the mayoral campaign trail he would not fund the police or reduce their numbers. Do you not believe him? Take him at his word? Do you think it's possible for someone to change their opinion on a matter like that as a public official?
Well, let me ask you the question, because neither of us have the opportunity to look into the Assemblyman's soul, unless you have an ability that you haven't let on. These are very strong statements. They are wicked and corrupt. They are racist. They are anti-queer. They are a threat to public safety. Defund the police. I say, no, they don't really mean it literally. He says, no, I mean it literally. Defund the police. Now we're a few months from an election, and all of a sudden, oh, I didn't mean what my words clearly meant, and all the different times I stated those positions. I meant something else. I meant fund the police. Well, either you were telling the truth then, or you're telling the truth now, but you cannot justify those two statements. I am skeptical of politicians who change their positions weeks before an election. Maya Angelou has a quote that roughly, because she's much more beautiful with the English language than I am. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. He said this repeatedly, vehemently. He's a member of the DSA. It is in the DSA charter. They sign, I support defunding the police. You signed that. Are you now no longer a member of the DSA? Did you violate the DSA charter? Or are you just pivoting momentarily for political expedition? And by the way, keeping the police level the same doesn't mean keeping the police level the same, because you are treating people at a phenomenal rate. So if you just freeze hiring, you're going to be dropping the size of the force exponentially, given the rate of attrition. If he became mayor, I guarantee you would see the rate of attrition increase. What police officer wants to work for a mayor who says they're a racist, an anti-queer, and a threat to public safety? What police officer wants to work for a mayor who doesn't have their back? By the way, we've seen what the NYPD does when they have a mayor who doesn't have their back. You know what they do? They turn their backs. Thank you, guys.
Governor, can you talk about your new logo and your rebranding and your new
Yes, I
setup?
designed it myself. I have an artistic side, Gloria, that I haven't really showed you yet, but it's, not enough. But it's
Are
good.
you more comfortable in the setting? You know, behind the desk?
No, I'm more comfortable sitting on a park bench in public housing with you, and this child blow bubbles. That was my highest compliment. Thank you, guys.
Okay, just, Gloria,